The bill that includes all of President Trump's key campaign promises economically is back on track for now. House Speaker Mike Johnson is racing to get his entire conference on board with the mega bill by the end of this week. The potential for another derailment is still very much there. So what are the key sticking points? Among them, state and local tax deductions, very important to blue state Republicans. Eliminating Biden-era green energy credits, a key priority for deficit hawks and climate skeptics. How much to cut Medicaid and when those cuts should take effect. And more generally speaking, how big of a spike in the deficit the Republican Party is willing to tolerate. My supporters are back here, including two people who know the Hill, maybe better than most of the members who are going to have votes there. Manu and Leanne. Manu, I'm going to start with you. I know that you're, of course, getting texts on your phone with updates about the fate of this bill.
Yeah, and I was speaking to House GOP leadership aides this morning. It's very clear that those sticking points you laid out have not been resolved. And once you go too far in one direction to resolve one aspect of the conference, you get other problems in other aspects of the conference, whether it's how to deal with Medicaid work requirements and speeding up the time frame for implementing these first-time requirements. That's what the hardliners want. But that's going to cause angst among the more moderate members. There's also discussion about how to phase out these green energy tax credits that are part of the Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act. The hardliners want that done rather quickly under this bill, but that's causing major concern among a lot of the more moderate members. One of them is Congressman Don Bacon, who's in a swing district in Nebraska, who told me that he said the Midwest needs a biofuels energy to thrive, or we're facing an ag recession. He is very concerned about the direction of these talks. And of course, Johnson has virtually no margin for error, can only lose 3 Republican votes on a straight party line vote, and that issue of state and local tax deductions. The New Yorkers are pushing very hard to increase the amount people can deduct, but that's going to increase the price tag, and the hardliners are upset about that. So how does he resolve all of these major issues? That's a big question.
And just to sort of reiterate what I know that the viewers of Inside Politics know inherently, but it's worth saying, the reason why every one of these members matters is because the majority is so incredibly slim. And so each one of these issues and each one of the members in the Republican conference who is raising their hand about it has tremendous leverage.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I was talking to a source today who said part of the problem, which you outlined, is that there's nothing that's closed. All of these different fronts are still open, which is making it so complicated. You know, they passed this key milestone in the Budget Committee last night, I'm told, because the Trump White House got heavily involved. But there's a lot of frustration that these members who had held it up previously had changed their vote from no to present, a sign that they're not on board yet. I'm also told that the message that Johnson is going to push on his members this week is that it will be a huge embarrassment if Trump's agenda is stalled beyond their self-imposed deadline of Memorial Day, which is this weekend.
Right.
And so that is a way he's trying to push these members forward, but ultimately it's going to come down to Donald Trump having to get involved, which is how Speaker Johnson has won so many of these.
The word that he always uses, the president, is with the grandstanders, to suggest that the people who are using their leverage are doing so to get on CNN and elsewhere. In fairness, most of them have legitimate policy concerns, one of which is something small like the deficit, the budget deficit, which is huge. Take a look at this from the Wall Street Journal. If you just look at the red, that indicates how much the deficit would go up if and when this, whatever the current situation is in this bill, would get implemented.
A couple things. First, the White House is absolutely, Leon is 100% right, is getting involved. They held a briefing this morning, Caroline Leavitt did, in which they put a lot of pressure on Republicans to pass this bill, and also, to your point just now, Dana, sort of dismissed concerns about the deficit writ large, saying that the bill is not going to have the impact that economists and Moody's and others are clearly saying it will. Also, by the way, dismissed Moody's downgrade and said that the president disagreed with that. So you are also, certainly all of you, Hill experts, are right that each of these members of Congress have a lot of power. But so does the president, and his power is not just in the fact that it's something he wants, but it's in the pressure that he puts on and the speed and rapidity with which he will turn on his own party members and his own allies if they don't do what he wants.
Good.
I mean, there's still not an official cost estimate either from the Congressional Budget Office, which analyzes the impact this will have on the deficit. So when the White House says, oh, this is not going to raise the deficit, we have not actually seen the projections. There are outside analyses that do suggest this would have a huge impact on deficit. They want to permanently extend the Trump tax cuts and add to it. And the big question that I have is that some of these hardliners, like Chip Roy of Texas, who have said that if we permanently extend the tax cuts, that means we have to have spending cuts that equal those tax cuts. That means $5 trillion of spending cuts. That is way beyond anywhere near that they're talking right now, which is more like $1.6 trillion. So that's a big question. Will the Chip Roys of the world dig in and demand that, or will they ultimately cave under pressure from Trump?
And this is what we were talking about in the break, sort of the whack-a-mole nature of the challenge for House Speaker Mike Johnson, because on the one hand you have the conservatives saying, okay, it's too much spending. And then you have the majority makers, including Don Bacon, who you were talking about from a swing district, and the New York Republicans who allowed Republicans to hold the gavels and to have the speakership, saying SALT, which is the state and local tax deduction, which their constituents got in the last the last Trump bill, when he was president the last time, saying we're not giving up on this. And Nick LaLota said, my party's $30K cap proposal only makes 4 in 5 households whole. That's not enough. And then he goes on to say, I'm fighting for a higher cap. Wish me luck. I'm holding the line on SALT. This is make or break for these members.
So what's interesting is usually in these negotiations in years past, as Manu knows quite well, it's usually the moderates that fold. But this time, Don Bacon is in a district that Trump lost by 6.5 points. He has no incentive to fold at this point. The New Yorkers, who some of them are in these swing districts as well, and also a huge incentive for the New Yorkers is if this bill expires, because they're extending a bill that already exists. If this expires at the end of the year, the SALT cap goes away. And so they have very little incentive to underplay their hand here.
And so it just, for people who might not be familiar with SALT, effectively what it means is that taxpayers in these blue states, their effective tax bill was higher because the deduction went away for them.
President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill facing major unresolved sticking points as it now heads for another key vote before the House Rules Committee on Wednesday. Late last night, the House Budget Committee narrowly approved the tax and spending cuts package by a vote of 17-16, with 4 Republicans changing their no vote to present to allow for that bill to advance. House Speaker Johnson is targeting a vote on the House floor by Thursday as he scrambles to win over hardliners in his party and keep them all aligned. CNN's Lauren Fox is joining us now. Lauren, look, he has a big job ahead of him to get to that vote on Thursday. Walk us through the state of play today.
Yeah, Jessica, I mean, there's big uncertainty right now in the House Republican Conference over whether or not this bill is going to be able to be passed on the House floor by that very ambitious Thursday deadline. Right now, what leadership is telling members is they have a series of discussions still ahead. They still need to make key decisions on what has been the biggest sticking points for not just days or weeks, but really months at this point. That is because you have a number of hardliners who are trying to push to speed up work requirements. We expect that can happen, but how quickly they can move, that is another question entirely. There's also another question about whether or not they may try to change the formula for how much money the government gives to states for Medicaid expansion programs across the country. And then there's a bigger question about how they are going to deal with a group of New York Republicans who have dug in, saying that they want to increase the state and local deduction for taxpayers from what it is now, $10,000, and they want to get it beyond what's been offered to them, $30,000. That is still a huge sticking point. So you have conservatives who are not there yet on this bill. You have some swing district Republicans who are not there yet. Meanwhile, the House Speaker is trying to get this all wrapped up by 1 a.m. That's when they're going to hold a crucial Rules Committee hearing on Wednesday morning. After that, it's all eyes on whether or not the speaker can muscle this to the floor and get the votes. Jessica?
Oh, man, we'll be watching. Lauren Fox with the very latest from Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for that.